are not live. And welcome to the Iron Lords Podcast, LLC, and also lordsofgaming.net. And this is an ILP exclusive episode. I'm extremely excited about our special guest, and we've got Revenge of the Savage Planet and much more to discuss. So we're going to get right into it. I want to introduce a Lord whose tremendous journey and resume within the games industry is truly impressive to chart. In game design, creative direction, and adopting a special animals logic to co-found a studio that loves to laugh. Introducing the creative director and co-founder of Raccoon Logic and their journey to and revenge of the Savage Planet franchise. The former Lord of Assassin's Creed 3, Far Cry 3, and our favorite army of two aggro brothers. Live from Quebec by way of Australia and kind enough to make his debut into the realm of the Lords. My man, Lord Alex Hutchinson. How we doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. I think that's the best introduction I've ever received in the video game industry. So I will hire you. I will hire you. You can be the hype guy.
I appreciate you saying you are Lord at what you do. An absolute pleasure to have you in the realm. So it's only right, what you been up to, man? Has it been only Revenge of the Savage Planet? Have you got a chance to play any games, or are you just kind of locked in right now?
No, we're pretty more on the downslide. So we're fixing some bugs, and now that it's out there being played by a lot of people, we're trying to make sure we're keeping up with any weird, fringe issues that we didn't spot. So we've got patches incoming, but and then on my side, there's a lot of pitching of new games, trying to get, we got to get paid, otherwise we're out of business.
Awesome. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. That's a theme for this episode.
So we're doing that. But no, I'm playing a bunch of stuff. Claire Obscure, a bunch of other recent stuff that's coming out, and a bunch of indie stuff. So lots of good games. Always lots of good games.
Nice. That's what's up, man. And you already know we got the original Lords of the Realm here at the round table. My co-host, the co-most, my brother from another mother, the difficult game conqueror, Lord of his own world, and the how of the young wolf. My man, Lord Attic, how we doing, sir?
Doing pretty good. I'm exhausted, but that seems to be a trend these days. So,
no doubt. And of course, we have the incredible Hulk of this, aka the XS Gamer.
Ooh,
the prophet of Xbox.
Swami.
King of the statues who demands nothing less than that premium experience. It is the ascended one of the Xbox platform movement. Ooh. Beloved Lord King, how we doing, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. I have rested. Had a wonderful weekend where I got a chance to rest and catch up with family. Memorial Day plays a big part in my family. So we got a chance to remember our falling family members that gave the ultimate sacrifice for us to actually, do a lot of things that we take for granted. So those days, I just try to reflect on those sacrifices that was made for us. So
no doubt, respect. And of course, we have the gaming ninja himself, the Shinobi Lord Cognito, spreading that riddles to the realm of the ILP, and that's telling you what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. So now we got the intros all out the way. We got to get the focus back. Lord Alex, man, his video game history, his journey into game development, and of course, what led him to be the co-founder of Raccoon Logic and creative director of the recent release, Revenge of the Savage Planet. So, Lord Alex, let's start from the very beginning. What's some of the first video game systems you had, and what got you into gaming?
My dad was always a bit of a gearhead and a gadget guy, so I remember him getting one of the first sort of portable computers in a K-Pro, which was in a metal case, big folded front, sort of metal keyboard attached. But the first gaming system he ever got me was a ColecoVision back in the day, if you remember. Yes. If you remember that one, so
we all had. I love that. That's my dad. My dad got me a Coleco for my first system.
There you go. Nice. I remember playing Turbo. I think I had a racing wheel on that one, like a little thing doing laps on that. And I think I realized after I played for about 4 hours one Saturday, you couldn't pause it, but it also never ended. So, I think it was just looping. Looping forever. Yeah. It's my introduction to arcade ports. But yeah, that was a great little system.
Oh, yeah. Sega's Turbo. I remember. It was a very unique system because Atari was probably the more popular thing, King, right, at the time.
Yeah.
But like Coleco, they were like the more powerful system, and they had like a lot of support.
Nintendo had Donkey Kong was the best one. Pac-Man was close, but you had the 5200 that had the more accurate Pac-Man. But Donkey Kong actually is what sold Coleco. Like if you got ColecoVision,
yes,
Donkey Kong was it, and then you had Amiga and all those other ones, and television and all that other stuff. And I was privy to those things, but ColecoVision was my favorite because of Donkey Kong.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that was the era of the pack-in, right? Sometimes like the
Yeah.
pack-in game and stuff like that.
Bygone era.
Yeah,
Oh
lost
yeah.
in time.
Oh yeah, yeah. Shout out to Coleco. So from Coleco, where did you kind of advance to? Did you just continue on? What was kind of like the next level up, if you can remember, from
Yeah,
console
no, I
standpoint?
remember pretty well. It was like the NES was probably the next system I had, and then I didn't get back into consoles. Right, I played at friends' houses, but I played mostly after that. You mentioned the Amiga, but the Amiga 500 was
Yes.
my sort of formative machine. And it's unusual to hear Americans getting hold of an Amiga 500. It was sort of European and
Yep.
Australian
What?
and all that
Yes.
sort of stuff. But
What the
you
hell
know, I
is
was a
the
huge
Amigo
fan of.
500?
No,
Yeah,
that is
yeah,
the
All
young
right.
lord here. He's the youngest lord here. You got to
yeah.
bear
Kick
with
him
him.
off the podcast. That's it. He's out.
It was a
The
personal computer
yeah,
slash gaming,
Yeah.
and
yep.
it gave you the best gaming ports, like from arcade gaming ports. That Amiga was it, and then it also did well. My mother got it for word processing,
Of
right?
course.
Absolutely.
Right. So she was like, "This is going to be what is going to help you through school," and I'm like, "All right, yeah, sure."
Games.
Yeah,
But it
game.
had the most. It had a huge range of original stuff. I mean, sort of, everything from SimCity to,
Yep.
Peter Molyneux's early stuff at Bullfrog to
Yeah.
the Bitmap brothers, with
Yep.
Chaos Engine and Xenon 2, Sensible Software. Like, there was a huge amount of amazing British creative on there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Peter Molyneux, he introduced me to godlike Sims, like
Yep,
that
invented the
idea
genre.
of
Mm.
controlling and having the movement. I like wiping out a whole town just because you felt like it. It
Hmm.
gave you too much power. It gave
Yep,
you too
Yeah.
much control.
populous.
Yeah.
Populous,
Yes.
yes. Oh,
Yes.
yeah. I forgot about that. Wow. That's crazy. Oh, yeah. Salute to them, man. So you got Amiga. So then from that, so you kind of deviate and then you kind of become a PC gamer? You kind of stay in that
Well, I was
space?
I
Or?
had it a long time. I probably clung to it a little. It was my first love, so I clung to it a little long, I think. But it was sort of that point I thought I wanted to be involved in the games business, and I didn't really know what the jobs were, if that makes sense. So I was sort of reaching out. So the first sort of touch I had with the business was
Mhm.
also through the Amiga, because I would write, obviously before the internet. I was writing sort of guides to video games, and I would send them to the
Oh.
Amiga magazines in the UK. So
Oh,
I
Awesome.
nice.
once, they never wrote back, but they would occasionally run the pieces, which was very strange. It's the early
Mhm.
90s. So
Yeah.
I
Give me
remember
no
going
money.
around to a friend's house, and he had an old copy of Amiga Action, and they'd run my guide to Sensible Soccer as a cover booklet on that. So that was the first ever work, free, accidentally
The
for
first
free.
time you got robbed.
Yeah, first time I got robbed, exactly, was by Amiga Action in the UK.
That's what's up. Wow.
Yeah.
Nah, salute to
Yeah.
you. I mean, how difficult was that? Trying to make your break in the industry, doing these guys and stuff like that. So it was that, and then it kind of led to that was the first kind of break. What was like the first break as far as a job? Like
A
you getting
job,
it?
it took a
Yeah.
long time. I did fire off articles periodically, and I wrote a couple of things for, Edge magazine and Games TM back in the day and things like that.
Ooh.
And so I was getting, the odd bit published, but the sort of right when I was starting out, sort of late 90s in Australia, the video game industry there was collapsing basically. So there'd been a bunch of bigger studios. I don't know if you know Beam Software. They made Shadowrun
Yep.
on the Super
Yes.
Nintendo and all that.
Yes.
And then they became Melbourne House, and then they got bought by, I think it was Atari, and then they got bought by Infogrames,
Mm-hmm.
and they were sort of the last big sort of developer in Melbourne, where I'm from. And then they started just to slowly go out of business, and so Australia was too far away, too expensive.
Mm.
The time zone was bad,
Mhm.
and sort of bigger studios were growing elsewhere, and we didn't have tax breaks like we do. That's sort of why I ended up, to fast forward to the end of the story, in Quebec here,
Oh,
with the
that's the
tax
Quebec.
breaks,
Okay.
which leads to bigger studios. But anyway, so the industry there was collapsing, so there was really no work. And so the
Mhm.
first gig I got was for a little company called Taurus Games, who made
Mm-hmm.
Game Boy games, basically,
Oh
or Game
wow.
Boy Advance games in a strip mall, like an hour and a half outside of Melbourne. So
That's
that's when
nice.
I learned about 3-hour commutes.
Ooh. Oh yeah, he was about that
So,
life. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so
Yeah.
what was the one of the first games you worked on the Game Boy? Maybe I might have played.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, it was a great way to learn, because we would get these awful deals. It was like, so Activision once rung in September and said they had a deal with Marvel, but they were going to lose the license if they didn't publish 4 games before Christmas. So they were like, "What can you do in
Whoa.
3 months?" So we were
Yo.
we were banging out Game Boy games in really, really short order. So
Sounds like ET, but
yeah, a little bit, a little bit. We were trying not to
hopefully it
make
was
it
better
ET.
than ET. Yes, yes.
Hopefully. So the first thing I worked on was a Game Boy Advance port of Minority Report. You know the Spielberg movie?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a very strange little thing. So we worked on that, and I was way too ambitious and was slow, and it wasn't that great, and then all that sort of stuff. But we also, near me they were porting Doom 2 to Game Boy Advance, so we did that. We did an original Duke Nukem
Wait,
game
you did Doom 2 for
on the
Game
Game Boy
Boy?
Advance. Well, I didn't. The engineers did it because we didn't add any content to it. But
Okay.
the studio I was at did Doom 2 for Game Boy
Okay.
Advance. But we did do an original Duke Nukem game, Duke Nukem Advance, which was all new levels and all that sort of stuff. And I helped
I
out a
played
tiny,
both of
tiny
them.
bit on that.
Yeah, I played.
Um,
If it was first person shooter
yep.
in any handheld form, I got it, even though it was straining my little eyes at that time.
Yeah.
But definitely.
That's
But
cool.
yeah, but Doom 2
Mhm.
definitely. I
The
definitely had Doom 2 because I just did a piece on the whole life cycle of Doom,
Yep.
and one of the unknown games that I did put in there was a Game Boy port,
Yep.
and the RPG. If anybody remembers the RPGs, there was two RPGs that came out for Doom that I actually had both of them, and it was on a Windows platform on DOS. But
it,
sorry, go ahead.
the funny
it's crazy.
thing, the only experience I have really on the Game Boy is Pokemon. That was like it. Like Pokemon and some of the old Zelda games. That's it.
There you
Like,
go. Well, you played for quality.
yeah, there you go. There you go. But
That part. So then you
new
continue on your
new edge
game
gamers, man.
Yeah.
You good, bro? You good? So you continued on. You're doing your game ports, and then from there, how does that lead? Do you get over to what was it?
The
Max
Maxis. Yeah. Well,
Maxis. Yeah,
so
yeah.
it was right at the start. So we were doing that for a couple of years, and then I pitched. Was every time there's a generation change or anything big in the games business, some publishers go out of business and new ones come in, and there's a sort of a repeating pitch in the games industry of like trying to get movie people trying to make games, and you see it with Bad Robot right now. But before that, it was a company called BAM Entertainment. So right at the start of the
Yep, I
early
remember that.
2000s, they bought up a whole bunch of Hollywood licenses, and they wanted to make games on the cheap, but they didn't have enough money. So real development studios wouldn't pitch on them, but little ones like us who wanted to get out of Game Boy would pitch. So I pitched an adaptation of, if you remember, the Colin Farrell movie, The Recruit, for
Taking it back.
that, which they
Wow.
had the license. Yeah, exactly. And so we got a
That's
deal for the
old.
PS2
Yeah.
on that, but we'd never even seen a PS2 before. So I remember it was just it was a giant disaster basically. So we spent some time on that, and I met actually my current business partner, Reed Schneider. Was the producer on that game, and he saw the writing on the wall much faster than I did, and got a job at EA. And he rang me up and he said, "You need to get out of there. It's not going to ship. You need to come to EA." And I said, because I was young and stupid, I said, "No, I'm shipping this game. I'm doing it." And then 3 months later, at about 3 a.m, in one of those sort of long, dark tea times of the soul, where you think I'm wasting my life, I sent him an email saying, "Get me the fuck out of here." So So he sent my CV to EA, and it was in a period of growth for them, the opposite of where Australia was. So I got a bunch of interviews, and then they flew me out to talk to Maxis. And looking back on it, it's pretty crazy. I don't that they would take a chance on me, but it worked out. So yeah, that was really exciting.
Wow. I remember
Yeah.
Maxis, man.
I
'Cause,
remember Maxis too.
yeah,
Yeah.
they were. What they also.
I'm trying. I think they like do Gecko or something like that. They did something. It was that was in the era where we had mascots. And
Mhm.
I think they had, I don't know which mascot that they had, but I remember Max's, but I also remember Max's leaving.
Yeah.
So it was like a period of time where they made a couple of games that I actually played. I don't know if it was on the 3DO or whatever.
Yeah, for me, Maxis, I remember that I finally got into the Sim series through them, I believe.
Yep.
Right.
And it was Sim City, I believe, was like the
Yep.
first. And I was like, oh wow, this is really cool. I was getting really into it. And then obviously, the Sims on that. So then you start originally with Sims 2 at that point? Or
Yeah, I
okay.
was on the console team. So at that time, they were trying to port all of those Sims titles to console, because that was sort of an untouched audience. So we were sort of doing weird halfway between adapting the PC games and sort of coming up with new stuff for them.
Okay.
So I did Herb's Sims in the City, which we don't want to talk about.
I remember that.
Yeah. Well, I should preface it by saying, when I got there, I was hired to do SimCity on the PlayStation PSP, if you remember that.
Yes,
Yep.
oh yeah.
That
Oh
was
yeah.
the
That's a
first thing,
piece
because it was coming out in a few years and all that. And then as I landed, Sony delayed it, and they said to me, "Oh, do you want to go back to Australia?" And I sold all my possessions and got on a plane. I was like, "That ain't happening. I'm staying.
You're
I'm
done.
staying here. So give me something to do."
Yeah.
So they put me on a Sims version for handheld, thinking how could they make it work. And I had this idea that if The Sims was a sort of a satire of suburban life, of like,
Yeah.
you're buying stuff and going to work to get money to buy more stuff, to go to work, I thought, what if we did a joke on
Herbs.
gentrification, right? Like the idea that you'd buy like a chicken shop or something, and you'd try to turn it into a Michelin star restaurant or something, like the same sort of horrible joke. So we started on that, and then they decided to do a version for the big consoles, and then that got into trouble, so they pulled me in for like just the last 4 months to try and get it out the door. So, but at least it got me onto proper consoles and all that sort of stuff. And I did meet Will and the I met the Black Eyed Peas, which was very strange.
Yeah.
Slow.
So yeah, Will I Am.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they agreed to do before they went really big. They'd agreed to do the soundtrack, and they were going to do Simlish versions of all of their songs.
Oh, that's
for
sick.
the
That's
soundtrack.
sick. Salute
Yeah.
to Black Eyed Peas,
Yeah.
man. Oh, that's
Yeah.
what's up, man. Salute to you.
Yeah.
So you go on with that, and then one thing that I was looking over your journey, creative director, one of my favorite little underrated co-op gems, Army of Two, King. Remember Army
Oh,
of
of
Two?
course we know what Army of Two is.
Yeah, so he's the creative
Yeah.
director of Army 2 40th Day, and I must admit, I think that's one of the best ones. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
I think
awesome! Thank you. Appreciate
yeah,
it.
like level up, the aggro system, the team shooting, the snipes, you know what I mean? I think you could give yourself up like a fake give
Yeah, he
yourself
fake
up.
surrender. There was a
Yeah,
mock
yeah,
surrender. I
fake
like
surrender.
the fake
Oh
surrender.
man, so
You know,
good.
it's,
So
it's
yeah.
funny. I've always felt like, because people always be throwing out what this studio should work on that studio. I was like, I feel like Coalition would make one hell of an Army of Two.
Man, I loved Army
If
of
it
2.
wasn't for Army of Two, we wouldn't have got 50 Cent Blood and Sand.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
think so.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was very similar. Well, and
Yep.
they both owe a lot to Gears of War as well. Like we were
Yes.
looking at the cover shooter at the time.
So tell me about
But Army of Two, I felt took it up a notch because like Gears was kind of far fetched, right?
Yep.
Army of Two was based in
Yeah, the
in current
mercenaries,
right now.
yeah.
You're going to get that money. So I talk about that. Definitely talk about that.
Yeah, so it's interesting because things that are, like people's opinion of any creative thing change over time. Because at the time we were making it, what you said just then, that they're mercenaries, that they're just, they're fighting for money, was considered sort of distasteful. So a lot of the press were really negative about it. They only wanted war games where you were fighting for the good guys and shooting people for good reasons, and you're sort of like, well, it's a bit dubious either way. But so they were a bit against it, but now it seems to have come back to its origins. And one of the things I'm proud of, I was like leaning into it. So I was like, if we're going to do mercenaries, then I want bling, and I want guns with bling. So I want a Coke can silencer, and I want a gold shotgun. And so I think 40th Day was amongst the first to have that level of really wacky gun customization, which now you see it in Call of Duty, you see it in everything, in Rainbow Six, anything. There's no seriousness to the brands anymore. Fortnite, but I think we got out the gate first with that.
Yeah, man. Loved Army of Two, dope franchise. And then we got to put a little respect on your name, man. Your stint from there after at Ubisoft, and being creative director for Far Cry 4, Assassin's Creed 3, iconic gaming franchise. Like, how proud are you of your contributions there? Any standout moments to your tenure at Ubisoft?
Yeah, I mean that was awesome, and I think the reason people, it helped my career a lot, and Ubisoft again putting a lot of faith in me to not fumble the bag, so to speak, on those two things. Ubisoft was always sort of one big game from flop from going under, and they've sort of always been that way. They're very creative and they back creatives, and so I always liked that about them. But Assassin's Creed 3 was a scary one, especially as we were doing it in the American Revolution.
Yeah.
And then we realized, that there were no buildings above 2 stories. In the American Revolution.
How did you
and
feel?
you got a game about climbing on things, so we decided to do sort of the free running in the woods and all that stuff, and redo the combat and naval battles and all that.
Yeah,
So
because
it
that
Real
was
quick,
when I was jumping in trees.
How did you guys feel about coming off of Axio and Assassin's Creed 2 trilogy? Because I'm sure that was like you guys felt a little pressure because that was probably the height of Assassin's Creed in general. Like,
Yeah, and I mean that's it. And Ezio, Ezio's such a beloved character, but at the same time, if you think about it, it's a bit strange, right? It's like it's to me, it's like a little. I don't want to say racist.
Mario.
I don't want to say racist, but it's a little, like my animation director Mike Manillo, he's Italian. He's like the only shitty mocking accent you can do and not be called a racist is Italian. And I'm like, it's kind of true, but like, but there was no ill intent in it, obviously,
Yeah.
they it did so well. But then and he's an iconic character, and we knew it was always going to be tough, coming up with a character to sort of sit alongside that.
I like Connor though. I felt like he
yeah.
was a good character.
Well, I'm glad because like again when it came out, because it was very important to us. Also, I think we were the first to make sure we were casting a Native American actor to play a Native American character. Whereas
Facts.
obviously Ezio's voiced by like a white guy from LA.
Exactly.
So we found that, but then when you do an authentic accent, like an authentic Native American accent, often lacks a lot of inflection, so
Right.
it can be quite flat. And so we got a lot of crap for his performance being flat at the time, but I think it's aged well.
Yeah, it did. It aged very well. Yeah,
Absolutely.
because that I think that's an arduous task in trying to take over something that is as iconic as Ezio. So
Yeah, it's terrifying.
definitely.
I think you just got to run in the other direction, like just like, run as fast as you can in the other direction.
I feel you, man. What about Far Cry 4? I saw an interview and you made some comments in reference to Breath of the Wild, maybe inspired.
Yeah.
Maybe
You-
Nintendo took a couple of your bars.
Yeah.
So
Real quick before you speak, Alex. Again, you coming off of Far Cry 3, arguably the best in the franchise.
yeah, he's always coming behind the
Yeah, they're giving me. I'm like the I don't know.
You're the
Well,
encore.
they're
You're the
telling you to
encore.
they got confidence in you to keep it going. Your level is there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've always felt like it would be more fun to be Ridley Scott than James Cameron, but apparently I got
Who
the
came
James
up-
Cameron gigs every time. They're like, this movie was huge. Make a sequel.
You guys started the do what you're told and you beat the game. Who came up with that? Because
That was me.
in Far Cry 4, they'll give you he'll say stay here and I'll be back. If you stay there and don't leave when all the explosions happen, the game ends.
Yeah, I'll tell you why. Because I got irritated. I'm a believer in game development that the player story is the story. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I want stories to get out of the way of the player, like to react to the player and let you do what you want to do, right? And then I'm on franchises, especially at Ubi, which can be very narrative heavy, and they're like, no, the story is you're here to bury your mother. You're gonna take it in. I'm like, you've never met your mother. You're never gonna meet your mother. She's not even a person. She's in an urn. She's in an urn. I'm like, people are here to shoot guns and blow up animals, and drive trucks, right? That's what they're here for. Like, I don't want to hear this shit. And then everyone is arguing with me, and then I'm like, all right, let's play a game. If you believe that's the story, then the guy at the start should say to you, I hear you're back in the country to bury your mother. And you say yes, and he says, all right, wait there. And he will go away, and I was like, people won't even wait 5 minutes. And if you wait 5 minutes, he comes back, and he flies you in a helicopter to the end of the game, and you bury your mother, and no one dies. And literally, one person in 16 million players ever stayed in that room.
That was the day that came up. Yo, that's crazy. Yo, it's funny you say that.
Just to clarify, because if I remember correctly, they did that in the game after that too.
Yeah, they didn't get they got the joke, but they didn't get the reason for it. It wasn't like it was just like, oh, there's a fake ending. That wasn't the point. The point was, and you can only do it on the first cutscene, right? Because if the game lies to you, then why would you trust it after that? So the only chance I had was the very first cinematic. The game's going to be honest with you. Right. And if you are honest with it, then you'll get your result. But so I mean, it's cute. I love fake endings. Like Savage Planet has different endings.
It was great. It was because I haven't seen a lot of games do that up until that point. Like they literally the main antagonist is like, just sit right here. I'll be right back. You do what he says. The game's over.
The game's over.
And no one does. Nobody.
That's awesome, man. I love the ingenuity to put that in there to be bold and stuff like that. What I was going to ask earlier in reference to that was that as far as like some influences that are maybe Breath of the Wild may have taken, as far as the step out moments and stuff like that. Do you feel inspired that maybe Breath of the Wild looked at your homework a little bit?
I was like, that was the greatest compliment. I choose to sit on that compliment. That would be the greatest compliment I ever get in the games industry. And I mean, I think there's a little bit of truth in it, in the sense that everyone in games is obviously always learning from each other and paying attention to each other.
That's the beauty of it.
But we're so inspired by the Japanese developers, and I grew up, on the Nintendo, and and all that stuff. And obviously they basically invented structured game design, so with Super Mario Brothers and all that stuff. So Ubisoft had reverse engineered a lot of just on paper, like figuring out how it was paced, how it's structured, of all the 2D stuff, which is sort of how they started with Rayman. They were very interested in rational game design, not just feelings. Like, how does it work? Why does it work that way? Why does it give you that feeling? And so I was excited when we sort of applied that to 3D, and we had a structure for open world games, which sometimes became a bit too obvious, at times, but it worked. And the idea that Nintendo would be looking at that and figuring it out. And it was because I'd watched their E3 demo, and it was Link, and he climbed up a hill. He looked down on an encampment with smoke rising from it and enemies around it. He took out a glider, and he glided down to the camp, and he cleared everyone out of the camp, and the chest opened. And I'm like, that's Far Cry. Like, that's what we do. So, and I think Ayuma said it. I think Ayuma actually said he'd been playing a lot of Far Cry.
Oh, he did say it. Wow.
There's nothing more satisfying than getting a 50 cal on Far Cry, getting a higher edge, and just picking people off, and they can't get to you.
Yep.
Bro, the ultimate compliment, man. So then you put in a hard 7 years, man, at Ubisoft.
Yeah, quite a while.
Right, and then from there,
hold on? I have
please, go ahead.
Because one of my favorites is Primal. Did you have anything to do with Primal?
Only the sense that they took our whole map and used the same map.
Yeah, I was like, I said when I got it, I was like, it's so refined. Yeah. Oh my god.
I was like, in a way, I mean, I just wished I was trying to convince him. I was basically on my way out at that point, so not really. My wife was the marketing director on it, but so we've got connections. But
that's nice.
I just tried to convince him. My last thing I was saying, like, just tell them you're reusing the map. Say it's 3,000 years before. It's still Karat, but 3,000 years before, right? And you'll get away with it. And they didn't want to do it. So that's what
Fair enough. I had to get some more before
I had a question real quick. Now, feel free not to answer this, but back to the Assassin's Creed thing. When they killed Desmond, and they went towards the Origins, Odyssey. Do you think killing Desmond was a mistake?
No, I mean, well, maybe for me, because I had to wear it. Maybe I just like difficult challenges. But I thought, like, if you think about the franchise, if you go from AC1 to 2 to Brotherhood to Revelations to 3, it's sort of, 6 years, 7 years, getting in there. And so that means that you're asking a player who played the first game when they're in primary school to understand the story when they're going to college, And I just started to feel like it's too much. You get into the comic book problem of there's so much continuity and so much backstory.
You essentially asked them to play Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, and then your audience gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller because everyone's like, I'm lost. I don't even know what's going on. So I was like, the story has to progress. Maybe I should have been smart and not been the person to try and do it. But I felt strongly it was the right decision because, and then find something new. I mean, the original trilogy, as Patrice Désilets proposed it with Corey May, was going to be 3 games, and it was the 2 that were 1 and 2, and then the third one was going to be just Desmond in the modern world, and then that was supposed to be the whole thing. But then, like anything, anything that becomes very popular, you got to keep going.
Plans. So, I mean, in the end, I would say you were right because Assassin's Creed is on a different level than it was back then too. So
yeah, well, it's like an RPG now, though. It's the only game I know where, for no reason I understand, we decided to make it a completely different genre in the middle to go from like action adventure.
Shadows is a good middle ground, though. I will say Shadows is a good middle ground.
I fell off of it after I think it was the PlayStation portable or the Vita one. Yep. I think I fell off of it there, and you guys got me back with Origins because I'm a huge mythological Egyptian fan and the whole aspect of it, and then you had like a guided tour through the Egypt. I thought that was a great touch. But I also think that kind of pigeonholed them into making people think that it's historically accurate, and that's when everybody started grabbing onto. Well, it has to be the characters have to be historical. That's not it. But it did give you locations that were historical, but the characters was fictional. But you guys, I couldn't, like you said, the continuity, it started getting smaller and smaller. And then I had to remember what I was doing before. But when you guys, switched it up, I think I got more engrossed into it. I think it made it better.
As the newer style, like the one I really, really enjoyed the most was Odyssey. I really liked Odyssey. I don't know why. I really liked Odyssey.
But to Alex's point, And I think where I kind of agree with him in reference to the genre switch.
Yeah.
Because it went from like, okay, this is stealth, this is thing, and then it became more of like this action RPG. And I guess that's where I dropped off a little bit, but I think that's what you were kind of alluding to before. You were
Yeah,
saying.
just it's just an interesting choice. I mean, and the amazing bit is both were successful. So,
Yeah.
Yep.
you know, it's cool. They're still making it like 2 blocks from
Oh
my
yeah.
house.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. Canada in the building. Salute. So again, 7 years, at Ubisoft, good run, and then from there you co-found a studio, right? Typhoon Studios, and you move again to, and then also on to creative director at Stadia. So the question is, what led to that opportunity, and did Stadia purchase the studio? Like, how did?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So we sort of hit a point where I realized that half my day was making video games and half my day was arguing with people to stop them changing the video game. You know, and I mean that's kind of par for the course at any big publisher, if it's movies or TV or video games. And you know, when you're spending, I don't begrudge it. You know, if you're spending like we were, like $100 million, $110 million on a game, they're allowed to ask where their money's going. You know what I mean? And what's happening with it. But it just wasn't as much fun anymore on those big projects. And you know, we had 600-700 people, and they're in 5 countries, and it became very managerial. And you know, as we talked about before, I got into games because I love the Amiga and I love the Super Nintendo, and I love this idea of like knowing everyone's name and working with
Mm.
them and making the game as a team. I always see it more like a band, you know what I mean,
Mm.
than a business.
Yeah.
And so we thought, look, at that point we were sort of, you know, with 40 or odd, me and the other founders, and we were like, if we don't do it now, we're never going to do it. So
Mm.
luckily, financially, it seemed reasonable. The wives gave us the papal blessing, so to speak.
Wow.
And so we all quit our jobs and just gave it a shot. And it was exciting. It was good. And, you know, it was the same sort of run. We had initial funding from Microsoft, and then they
Mhm.
decided to pass. Then we were with 505,
Mhm.
got the game out the door. Right as we're getting it out the door, Stadia was launching. And I think, you know, everyone sort of knew it was going to be a rough ride. So no
Mhm.
one was going to join them at any note. But they sort of figured out a way to make it happen by saying, what if we bought the whole company and paid everybody? And so, yeah, it was
Sounds
an offer
good.
we couldn't refuse.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, okay.
Came with that Google money.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah. And then the
Google back your
pandemic hit.
truck up on that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So that was pretty
Mm.
cool. And but it, you know, it was pretty nightmarish year or so we were there. It was the pandemic. We never set foot in a Google office. We basically
Wow.
got bought. They closed everything down, and then we couldn't make anything for a year. You know, Google
Wow.
realized they didn't want to make video games. Then they made us all redundant. So on the same day, so then just as the pandemic was starting to ease up, we all got fired. And then, and
But
then it
y'all
was
got
like,
paid first, though.
yeah, we got paid first. That's
All
it.
right, cool,
Did
So,
you
cool. All right,
quick?
money good.
Did you even, because I remember Jay Raymond was like the head of studio. Did you
yep.
even had a chance to interact with them? Was the transition from them acquiring? What was that window from acquiring to
Well,
now letting
I mean,
go?
I'd known Jay 20 years because like she was at Maxis when I was there, and then
Oh, okay.
we were at Ubisoft at the same
Ubisoft
time,
together.
and then
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
you know we're out here, so we knew each other pretty well.
Mhm.
But no, we never really got traction. I think Google has so much money that they don't necessarily always have to think things through, and even things that for us would seem like catastrophic
Mhm.
money losses, they don't care. And
Mhm.
so I think they're a bit flippant with things. And so they got in, and then they realized that, you know, video games are an art form, and art is subjective, and subjectivity for them is problematic. They want things to be objective and literal, and you're like, this will never happen in a video game.
Mhm.
And so they lost excitement, I think, pretty quick,
Gotcha.
and then just shut the whole thing down.
Wow, man, that's pretty powerful. Because first of all, salute to you guys. For always one thing I think I always say, game developers are the heroes in the industry because the risk they take. Like think about like yo, we just gonna sacrifice the stability that we have, move across, create a studio because we love this and we have this passion, and you take this risk,
It's
this
the
leap of
ultimate
faith.
dreamers.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
you move your life
But I
right.
think I think it's an addiction to the win, to
Yeah,
chase
when it
that
when it works.
win.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it's working, there's nothing greater than becoming a rock star in that space that you love. Right.
No, for
And I
sure.
mean, and you've done it. Like you've done this rock starness because you know that you're that one hit away from that thing.
Yeah. No, I
And
think it's it.
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think it's it. I think it's the same if you want to be in any entertainment field, whether it's sports or music or video games or movies. you want to get that feeling, you want to feel like you're the reason that some other, teenager like you has the feeling you had when you were a kid. Like that's the goal, that you can contribute to this thing that was very important to you in your life. And I think like that, all those jobs, people move a lot. Like it was Max's gig was in California, and then from California up to Montreal, and so it's kind of an adventure too when you're 20. I will say that when you turn 40, it's a lot less fun.
Different.
Yeah, because we older heads here, but I can understand being young and be like, yo, this is exciting move. Okay,
I'm gonna
I see
sleep
where
on
you're
the
going.
floor. I'm gonna have a mattress on the floor in an extended stay America, and I was happy as a clam. You know what I mean? Like, I was like,
Respect.
I'm like I'm working 80 hours a week, but now like I was thinking of putting my kids on a mattress on the floor in the extended stay America, and I'd be like,
that's not gonna work
I'm
out.
a divorced dad. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That's not gonna happen.
I respect it. Back to your point. I'm sorry, get at it, please.
Yeah, so sorry about that. I keep having people come out. There's
No, you
like
good.
cops everywhere.
No, you good, bro.
I want you. Here's the thing. I want you to explain to us, because I feel like, in terms of content creation, there's too much ignorance when it comes to how pitching happens. Pitching a game. What's the process behind it? We've seen people like Phil Spencer say sometimes like all it takes is just having someone on that end be on your side to goes a long way. I want you to explain to us like an average pitching when it comes to stuff pitching again.
I'm probably a good person to ask, because I've pitched from every position. So, and you're always pitching like as a third party, in Australia with, not a good developer, all the way to internally at Ubisoft, and then as a third party again, but hopefully with a bit more juice. It's sort of always the same, is you're trying to find someone who has a need that you fit without changing what you want to do too much, Right. So at certain periods, Microsoft was buying a lot of games. This is why we talked to them like 7 years ago. And then, they're into it for a while. Now they've bought so much stuff, they're digesting all of that content. So they're not really buying anything. But Sony's back in the market after, I think, their gas stuff, hasn't survived. So they're looking for things, and then other publishers, they have budgets, they're moving around. So you're trying to find that, and but you don't think too much about it. You put together, your plan. Ideally, you have a demo. Sometimes you can pitch like the way we are now, which is our previous game, which just came out, a couple of weeks ago. We're like, that's the demo, and like I'll pitch to you what we're going to do to it and add to it and move it in another direction while we build it. So we're talking to people. And trying to find a fit, basically, and like, so I'll give you a taste. Like the pitch for the first Journey to the Savage Planet was sort of the anti-pitch to what was going on. I didn't want to make a gas game. I didn't want to make 1,000 hours. So I was calling it, it's a game for dads. It's a game for busy people. You're meant to finish it. It's short. You put it on the shelf and you buy another one. Like, that's what I want to make. These are the games I grew up with. Then obviously you get to the content, but you're both pitching an exciting idea, but you're also pitching a business, right? And it has to fit their vision of their business, or as you said before, like if you get, and you do need someone on the other side to be helping you, because those companies are thousands of people sometimes, or at least hundreds of people, and and they don't really care about you, right? So you need someone who cares about you.
The relationships.
Who's going to say like, no, this one, look at this one. This is the thing we want to do.
So let me ask.
Let me have a follow up real quick.
Go ahead.
I'm kind of curious, like in your experience, what are the companies that's easier to work with when it comes to pitching stuff? In terms of like, because like when it comes to like, do independent developers want to reach out to more like publishers, or do you go to console manufacturers first and pitch it first, or if that falls through, then do you go to publishers in general, like?
Well, they're all different, and they're all interested in different stuff, So I would say that EA is the tough one to pitch to historically, because they have lots and lots of internal capacity, and they're not very comfortable with new IPs. They have brief periods, like when we did Army or Spore, these sorts of periods. But generally, they're a company that's really good at managing brands, right? So they manage FIFA, they manage Madden, they manage, whatever they're working on at the moment. The new stuff scares them, and they're pretty tricky to work with. Whereas Ubisoft is not very good often at managing their brands, you know what I mean? But they're very comfortable with the uncertainty of new IPs. So that's why Ubisoft, puts out a lot of new content, new IPs. Historically, I think maybe, unfortunately, they're not in the right headspace at the moment, but I hope they come back, because that old Ubisoft was great. You would sort of say like, if you think of Watch Dogs or Assassin's Creed or like all these things coming out of Prince of
Splinter Cell.
Persia and Splinter Cell, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Reed, my business partner Reed was the original producer on the original Splinter Cell, so that's how
Salute
far
to
back he
Reed.
goes.
Salute
So
to Reed. That's my game right there. Oh my God, that game. Continue.
Hopefully
so
that game comes back.
yeah, and
Oh
then
no,
you got,
my question was going to be, who did you pitch Journey to?
Oh,
Right,
we pitched to. You pitched to everyone. So like we pitched
right.
to EA, Ubisoft, 505, Microsoft, Sony, Annapurna, Focus, Kepler, like
So
just
who
Activision.
bit? Did
Uh,
did Microsoft go to bite because of Game Pass early on? Because I think that game kind of fits in that mold. New IP, low risk if you're putting it into a service type of thing, and it does fit that quick to play, quick to end kind of idea to it. Was that kind of like the thought process with them if they bit
yeah.
on the
No,
first time?
They did. Like I think. So the funny thing about new IPs is that, and that's why I think why EA freaks out, and you need someone like Ubi, which was the people who founded the company were still there up until very
Right.
recently, so they remembered the uncertainty, whereas EA thought if it didn't come together really fast, you were probably stupid, and they just keep firing people.
Right.
But Microsoft bit, and I think it's because our initial pitch was more algorithmic or sort of procedural. You know what I mean? Like the idea that you could play, these towers and things. And then as we were going, we were like, we don't have the manpower, we don't have the team. So they signed us to a prototype deal.
Mhm.
And then we started that, and then I think they wanted it to be like what's that zombie game they have? Like
State of Decay.
State of Decay. Yeah, they wanted it to
Right.
be a bit more like that, and we were like, it was becoming more linear.
You
know what I mean?
you know what's funny? Me and Cog were playing Revenge of the Savage Planet last night. And I'm no. You can even ask Cog. I was like, this is actually what I want to say to Decay, but this is better.
Legit said that. He legit said that because we were like, we're not tethered. Like we were able to do our own thing. And then the way the progression was dope is that if Addict acquires something, I automatically get it. So I didn't feel like I had to play catch up and behind. It was just like, let's go. And I thought that was a really cool thing. It's funny you said that. Yeah, it's funny that.
Well, that's probably why Microsoft cut us afterwards.
Got the idea.
Yeah,
Keep it moving.
Yeah, so they decided not to do it, and that's fine. And they're actually really generous in that we could keep the deal was we could keep the code and we could keep the IP. So
awesome.
The worst deal you can sign is when they give you a prototype deal and then they kill it, but they don't let you do anything with it.
Yeah.
And then that's the worst because you're like, well, now it might be interesting and we've done development. It might be interesting to someone else, but you can't do anything with it. So they were really, really good about that.
Hold up. Even if the deal goes through and these companies fall back, they still keep the IP in a lot of these scenarios.
That's a 360 deal. That's a 360
depending on the contract you sign, but in general, you don't get it back. They paid for it.
Yep.
Okay.
Or they make you do even the sort of halfway houses. However much money they gave you for that prototype deal, they want you to give them that money from your new deal. So you need to get a new deal and refund them.
Wow.
Yeah.
They put the money up, so that's crazy. Yeah. Those are the intricacies you don't realize.
Shout out to Microsoft because they could have easily been like, "No, that's ours. That's my doll now."
Yeah. Thank God they didn't because I wouldn't have got Journey. And when I got a chance to play, because I played it inside Game Pass, and when I played it, I was just like, "What's this?" And I put it in, and I was like, "Oh, this is hilarious."
Okay.
And I said it's colorful, it's hilarious, because at the time I'm playing Fortnite and stuff like that, and I didn't like where Fortnite was at that moment, but this was kind of where I wanted it to be, and the stuff that I was able to do with it, like it was just. I like 3D platforming. I like that whole aspect of it. I love the adventure part to it. So it gave me those things that I was looking for. And if it wasn't for the service, I wouldn't have got a chance to play it. That type of thing. But I'm also glad that they didn't say, well, you know what? We funded this part to it and we want to keep that. Maybe I would have never got it.
Yeah.
So, it was like a good business practice, I guess, on that part.
And I think they're wiser than some in that they know that it's easy to bum out of the business, and they want people making content. They need people making content, and they know that everyone moves around and ends up at different studios. So if you end up with bad blood with individuals, it's not a good business plan.
Yeah, I've been told by multiple people the industry's small. It's easy to get like serious backlash because and they could be in a completely different building on the other side of the world. And it's easy to get hit over there too.
No
Yeah,
doubt.
there's probably, although the business is still big, I think in North America it's like
Hmm.
120,000 people or something,
Yeah.
Yes.
but I think there's a core of that has been around for a long time.
Hmm.
And then there's the people who come in and out, for 3 or 5 years, or who don't like it, or it's not not their cup of tea. So
No, fair enough.
not a big
But
business.
one final Stadia question, 'cause I just think it's so interesting before
Yeah.
we get to the main event. We're right at the main event. I know we were close. We're close to Revenge of the Sad Planet, but I gotta ask this. It was a reference to, I looked at it as a techie and I'm like, okay, I thought King laughed at me, but I'm like, I thought the tech was cool. I
Yeah.
thought I'm like, okay, they had the most advanced thing. It's in browser, and to be honest, you made some real interesting comments about Google in general in terms of the commitment. But I was like, man, they've got the YouTube integration. They can do cool things with creators. I'm like, this technically should be better than it was. And then now I look back, obviously maybe they were a little too aggressive with the console only thing.
Well,
And so that was the first question. And then
yeah.
this as far as the tech and the vision, right? And then the second thing is you were in a little bit of a controversy during that time. Had some statements in reference to streaming
Yeah, yeah.
and licenses and that relationship between gamers and whether or not they should have to pay the license fee. So your reflections on Stadia from the tech and the vision, and then obviously the streaming aspect.
So the tech, I still think the tech was a great idea. It was just not a fit for Google to make it, like, not in terms of technical ability, but in terms of, they for instance, no one gets tasked at Google, so we couldn't get features out of the core tech group. And so
Oh,
you'd be like,
Wow.
we need you to do this so we can, and again, they're like, oh, maybe. And you're like, you can't run a business. You can't run we can't run our business
oh,
like this.
maybe.
But I still think one day, we'll have platform agnostic, consoles, PCs, whatever you want to call it, gaming platforms that you
Right.
can interact with. I still
Mm.
think the idea of playing a few hours at home, getting on the bus on my Steam Deck or my whatever, playing a bit more, and then getting to work and playing on my lunch break, and it being a shared save.
Mm.
I still think that's a cool
That
idea, and
I like that
So,
I
Xbox
like
Play
it.
Anywhere. I
so
like
play
that.
anywhere kind of
Yeah,
works. Yeah.
yeah. But it was, and then there's latency issues, but they were trying to get to. But then you just, like every platform for the history of time has had strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
So maybe you just say, hey, that's the weakness of this platform. The upside is over here. Make games that lean into the upside, and don't
Mm.
try to force it to do things it doesn't want to do, and leave that market for other people. So that's that part.
Like
In terms of
Nintendo.
yeah, exactly.
I
And
thought. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
and they're the richest company in video games. They got like $6 billion in the bank or something insane. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they never discount. They never
Yeah.
they never do it. They do their own
And that's
thing.
why they got
and
$6 billion in the bank.
That's what I'm saying.
That
That's what I'm
part.
saying.
That part.
Pre-order
I,
now.
I thought it was the business model that kind of undercut Stadia.
Mm.
When I looked at like what they were selling stuff for and what because I thought it was supposed to be a service, but then you buy the games and you're in the service, and it was
Also,
just too weird for
yeah,
me.
it wasn't clear, and it wasn't a good value proposition. It just seemed very strange. Yeah,
Right.
I agree with you. Like they didn't, and they didn't figure it out.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So now the streaming contest, where you got little people a little hot at you, a little
Yeah, no,
upset with that, Lord
and
Alex.
so shockingly, it turns out everyone wants stuff for free.
Yeah. That
So
part.
the basic premise is pretty simple, which is
Uh-huh.
not how some people took it, but that if you are running a business using our content that cost us tens of millions of dollars to make, and you're making money on it, then that's not fair. In the same way that I can't start talking over the Super Bowl and start charging people to watch it online, right, without paying the NFL. So
Right.
like, it's like if you want to stream
Legally,
it,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, and legally in games, like it's illegal in games.
Technically, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
So like it's only because people are letting it happen, So I'm like, the person was clean it up. Like say some games who see it as marketing or advertising, great. Then don't have that in your EULA, like
In
give it
ULA.
away.
Right.
Make it clear up front that you can do what you want with it. But for other games where we know that people are not there, there's now you see it in the data,
Let's
which
go.
was also my premise that there are people who love playing games, there are people who watch streamers to buy games, and then there are people who just watch streamers.
Yeah.
And the people that just watch streamers are never giving a dollar to the games business. They're giving a money to an entertainment business, but that entertainment business is being subsidized by the content they're not paying for. So like that was just it. So like
Okay.
if you, everyone should be fair. Is the
No, I get where you go. Now, I
Yeah.
will push back
Yeah.
because I
Of course.
understand.
Yeah,
I understand to the letter of the law. You are
Yeah.
correct. You are absolutely. I'm not going to push back. That is technically not their content, and technically, if Twitch or YouTube wanted to go after someone in
Yeah,
a
they
certain
could.
service, they could do that, right? And then I guess my only pushback would be like, okay, but then you have games like an indie game or some game that didn't get any type of relevance or eye on it, and you've got these
Among
content
Us,
creators
great
now, right?
example.
There's
Among
so
Us was
many
out for like a
games.
year and a half. No
Yeah,
one
like
knew what that game
people
was.
had no idea what this game was, and then streamer X, who has this crazy following, starts playing this all the time, and now you get this organic growth, and everybody wants to be part of the zeitgeist moment, and then bring. I mean, I assume you do, but I have to ask, like, do you understand that portion of the argument where people are like, hey, you wouldn't have got any visibility if Lord,
Yeah.
blah 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 didn't play it.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it works. I would say a very, very, very tiny percentage
Yeah.
of the thing it works. But it's like the people who say, like, give me your artwork for my business for free, and it's
Yeah.
advertising. You know what I mean? It's like
All
you're like
right.
sort
Yeah,
of.
shot fired.
Oh, you
Budgie.
still standing on this, Lord? You
No,
still
well,
standing
you know
on it?
what?
I thought you was gonna change just. I respect
No,
that. You
I
still on
mean,
your square.
I understand exactly what he's saying, but everything, because I stream, I have my streaming
Yeah.
channel, right? So every time I do stream, well, probably if I'm giving the game for marketing purposes.
Yeah.
But other than that, if I pick a game, like let's say I'm going through Game Pass and I'm like, yo, I really like this game, not told to stream it or whatever, but I tell you where to find it, what it's about, who is it, who did it, this, that, and the third. And that's unpaid marketing on my end.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
I do get a check from YouTube or Twitch or wherever I get a check from,
But not a check from the direct company themselves.
right.
Yeah.
But sometimes you do get acknowledgement from the company. So I think it's some symbiotic in nature that somebody is going to get a short end of the stick. Sometimes it's the streamer and sometimes it's the actual developer, but it's symbiotic because when it does hit, when the growth does hit, I've seen companies reach out to that streamer that helped get it there.
Yeah.
And they actually have a different relationship later on, so I think it's necessary some points.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think you're right. It's horses for courses, and then you have the other side, which is if you have a story-based horror game and someone streams it, I've seen it absolutely tank their
tank
sales.
the game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
tank
I
the
can
game
see
because
that.
now
Yeah.
everyone's like, oh, I saw the ending of the movie, right? So I think all that needs to happen is there are all these different types of relationships that can occur. We just need to clean it up instead of it being in this weird gray semi-legal state. We just needed to be like, if you want to stream something, you send an email, and the company goes, absolutely no problem. Maybe they'll give you, they'll help out, right? If that's if that's something cool. And then just instead of it just sort of being a free for all.
I think there's multiple reasons they don't do that. One, the amount of manpower it would take to do something like that. Because you think like we just a fraction of streamers, content creators, TikTokers overwhelm people. Imagine if all of them had to contact someone to do something. And another thing, I think when it comes to letter of the law, yes, it can cut into sales, but I would say those people were probably buying the game anyway. Most people, when they look at a game that they're really excited about, there's a reason they play it on the Twitch, because they're watching it on Twitch, because they won't go buy it anyway.
I wonder. I mean, that's a bit like it gets close to the piracy argument, though. That all the people who stole your game weren't going to pay for it. And I'll tell you, like console after console's been sunk. When the PS1 went big piracy, when the Amiga went big piracy, that killed those consoles, and and killed lots of the developers who were on those consoles.
But those people,
that's what happened to the PSP.
But I think I've always, you could ask Hog, I've always spoke very highly against piracy. Those people even worse in the situation. Because here's my thing. If you don't like a game, you don't like the statements the game says, okay, don't buy the game.
Yeah, don't buy it.
But then when you pirate it, no, it's not that the game wasn't good enough. It's just you didn't want to give them money for it. That's why I feel it's like a little, because those people are gamers in general. If they were gonna pirate it, it didn't matter. They were gonna play that game. But when I think when it comes to like also with the streaming aspect is, I do think the money, like, it just depends on who it is. because I feel
Oh
like
yeah. I'm not. No one's gonna care about someone making $50 or streaming in their basement. But if you're the core content for a multi-million-dollar, a year streamer, and they only play your game, then all of a
Yeah.
sudden you're like, you're broadcasting the NBA. That's what you're doing, and you ain't paying for it.
I do think that this does hurt. It kind of dripples down. Like, for instance, I remember like Moonlighters got a huge upwork when what's that dude in the Destiny community called? Food something.
I forget.
Yeah, but
too much food.
Too much food. Yeah, he played it, and it's the dude that's always obsessed with watermelons and everything he does.
Yeah. I think it's too much fruit. I think it's
so.
Fruit,
It's like I said, Among Us. I would even say content creation brought Fortnite where it is now. I don't know if Fortnite would be here. It is where. So I said I understand your cons, and I do feel like people are too emotional over stuff like that. You're speaking from the perspective of someone that makes the games, and we're speaking from the perspective of someone that covers the games.
Yeah.
So there's two different perspectives. That mean either one of them are wrong. It just means you can only speak from your perspective. Yeah, because I would argue that content creation says I don't even know how much money in marketing. Like ridiculous amount. I was told by a PR person that some of these indie devs have completely went away from paying for like ad placements and stuff because they're all just going to content creation.
Well, no, but that's it. But they're paying those content creators, and that's a clear thing.
But I'm referring to they might pay 20% of the people they're reaching out to, but they gave 100% of the people the codes, and they're still getting 80% of that viewership without paying them to actually go above and beyond and stream the game.
But that's assuming that that's good content as well. But also,
I feel you. And not every content is created the same.
Yeah. But they're also not. You're assuming they're not going to suddenly start spouting racist stuff while playing your game, right?
Exactly.
I think about that.
You have no control over the content, so that's a fire and forget sort of move. That's pretty dangerous.
I do feel like that's a statement you can use on anything, though. Like when you sponsor someone going to like the NFL, you don't know what they gonna say when they go. You don't know what signs is going to be in the WWE.
It's still checks and balances because a lot of times when we send our like information out to people, I'm pretty sure they vet us. Right, I'm pretty sure you looked and seen what really happens on Iron Lord's podcast and say, I could go there.
I give him credit though. I give him credit. He accepted very fast.
I knew you guys.
That's all. Really?
I appreciate that.
I'll ask that question at the end. Now we do got to move because I want to be respectful of time here. We're here for the main event now. This is what we're here for. This journey, this revenge of the Savage Planet.
Yes.
Obviously, you co-found, Raccoon Logic. You guys create this franchise. Me and Attic were playing recently. Obviously, King is the one that put us really on to the whole.
Yeah,
if it wasn't for King,
I played it when it first came out. Ironically,
awesome.
I think 505. I don't know if it was 505. Someone sent us a review code. Me and Smooth.
All right, there you go.
Nice. Shout out to 505. Yeah. So King put us onto it, and then me and Attic recently playing as much as last night. And one thing I realized is that we played the first. We're like, okay, this is cool, but we see the substantial growth and the upgrade from the first day. When you see, it's like the satirical co-op. Metroidvania, it's hilarious. Shout out to whoever you have as this companion announcer. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like Felsafe from Destiny, the chick from Portal.
This hysterical companion AI, and then the main thing is like you guys lean into, especially shout out to the animation team running animation. Everything is over the top, and of course the crazy enemy. So for those who have no clue, about Savage Planet, tell our audience, about it.
The way we sort of see it is it's a bit of corporate satire. It's a 3D, third person action adventure, semi-open world exploration collectathon in a sort of optimistic dystopia. That's sort of how we saw it, and it was a throwback to. I wanted to make games a bit. We're harping on the Amiga, so I wanted to make games that were like the Amiga, where because it was again before the internet. You had magazines, and I'd buy them, but games were kind of mysterious. You looked at the back of the box, you read the blurb, you tried to figure out. Genres hadn't sort of settled into stone, and so you were like, "What the hell is this?" And some of these games that I found, over the years, Hunter, I don't know if you remember a game called Hunter, which was like on the Amiga on a floppy disk, on a 1.44 megabyte floppy disk. It was a full 3D open world. Like you went from islands, there were vehicles. It was like GTA, but on a floppy disk. And it was sort of unfinished and unpolished. And, obviously not as, you know, there were no cutscenes or anything. It was a big system, but these things just sort of blew my mind. So I wanted to get back to, you know, something that didn't feel like the existing current genres. So we wanted it to be bright and optimistic, because everything we saw on the shows was gray and brown for a while there.
Yep.
We were bored of doing real world stuff. Like the assassin runs at the, you know, as fast as a human can run, just like the people in Far Cry. They shoot real world weapons. They don't jump so high. They don't do these things. So we wanted to free ourselves up a bit on the design. And then probably the last decision was we went to comedy, because we were like, look, we're not going to compete. You know, there's only 30 of us, right? So like they were a really small team, and we're not going to compete with the big hitters in the genre. So let's just say all your gear is fourth best. That was our tagline on the first game. Like, you're the fourth best, and then make it funny. Like, the gun doesn't always shoot straight, and so instead of people nitpicking us and saying, oh, you know, which the gaming audience can be, you know, I mean, there's a lot of teenagers in it, right? They can be very harsh and very black and white. And so we were like, no, it's bad because it's meant to be bad. So we sort of went in that direction and tried to make something that was funny in the pad, not just funny in the script.
I really enjoyed how you have that animations, different animations. A lot of the times when you like respawn, there's one I saw where he's like essentially sitting in the pod and he's, what am I doing with my life? I felt like.
I remember we were at, I forgot what show it was, but it popped up on the screen and I was like, oh, they doing it. And because I didn't know that y'all was actively making it, because remember, y'all was Typhoon first, right? And I was kind of upset and kind of, you know, mad or whatever. But again, I didn't know that y'all was making it. And then I said, y'all making it. And then I saw day one in Game Pass. And I got goosebumps again right now. Just thinking about it, that this is happening, and they're gonna make sure that at least 40 million people get a chance to have this in their life. And the glow up, see, they got a chance to play it yesterday and the day before, right? But I got a chance to play it the moment it hit. Like, I was like, I'm in there, let's go get it. And I was like super happy. And then I saw you on Twitter, and like made a statement about something, and I said we'll talk about that later. Anyway, I got the tweets. We gonna get to those after that. But I was like, I gotta reach out. I said, I gotta do something. And you reached right back out. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, God, please, Cog, let's not mess this up. And
I had him immediately. He responded back, no, immediately. We definitely will get into it. Before we get into it, I do want to ask in reference to, because one thing, you know, being an addict, and I know, King, you are the connoisseur of the game, but like, the decision to go from first person to third person was kind of a big decision. So at first, we playing the first one. Let's play a couple hours, rock this out, and let's see what he did. And it was jarring at first. We was like, I don't know at first.
It was very, very clear. Like,
and then once you start playing, you got the double jump. And I'm like, yeah, the platforming, you can kind of see the physical humor a little bit more now. Obviously, the engine glow up is there. So, like, tell us about that, the journey as far as, like, the learnings from Journey to the Savage Planet to Revenge of the Savage Planet from a game design standpoint.
I think, like, so the biggest learning was that you can do comedy in the pad. So the where it comes from essentially for me is, and there's a lot of comedy in all the games. Army of Two had a lot of comedy, you know, Far Cry has a lot of comedy. I'm like, probably Assassins is the least funny game that I've ever made, you know, over the years. But I really thought, why is comedy not a big deal in games when it's a big deal in movies and it's a big deal in everything else, you know? And I think it's because we were trying to do movie comedy in games, right? So like, it was just in the script, it's just people talking to, and that's funny once. But when I was working on Far Cry 4, and I've told the story before, so I'm sorry if you've heard it, but I was trying to throw a Molotov cocktail at an enemy, and I missed the enemy, and I hit a bear, and then the bear was on fire, and the burning bear killed my friend and my co-op partner, right? And that was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. And I was like, the whole room is laughing, right? And I'm like, this is it. Like, this is in the systems of the game. So the learning was, if you put the comedy in the system, so you have tasks the player needs to perform, the gear is fourth best, the task is a bit hard, and the consequences are chaotic, then you get humor. It's why Helldivers is funny, right? You know what I mean? Like, so we tried to double down on that, and I think that was hopefully more successful on this one. Hence the, you know, well, that's why we went to third person, so you could see systemic effects on yourself, and you know, and you could see where your feet are, which is always good. And as our animation director Mike Manillo said, there's only so much funny you can put in two hands, right? So if the hands are at the front of the screen, it's not that funny. So he's working on that. And then we learned that the audience was there for a fun, for bright and optimistic sort of color palette. It wasn't too childish to put off adults. It wasn't too serious to not let kids play. And then the biggest learning probably is, we did co-op on Army of Two. I put in the Far Cry 4. We did this one that. The pitch of you and your best friend, you and your partner, you and your kid versus the world is sort of a forever pitch. And so we wanted to get back to, the golden age of gaming, as we've been saying, where you and your buddy on a couch with a pizza. That's what we wanted.
Salute. No, that's amazing. That's amazing. I love what you said. That I think you had a quick question in reference to.
No, I was. Well, was there a particular reason? Because I was one of the people that enjoyed the first person aspect from the first one. Was there a conversation to maybe give an option, or was it like too demanding in resources to give the option?
Yeah, it's just too expensive. Like, we're still toying with. We've got some ideas, like, to see what we can do down the track. Because it's almost like invert y-axis, right? It's like you love it or you don't, right? You want it or you don't.
I want to point. It did grow on me, but at first I was like, what's the button to switch perspectives?
Mind you, we went immediately from Journey to Revenge, like immediately. But continue.
Well, and it was a big push from the animators and from a lot of people who also on the team had worked on other, not me, but on the Arkham games, and they'd worked on with a lot of third person people there, and so they would like it a lot, and so they wanted to come back. And I was a little worried at first, but you have to go with the team. If the whole team wants to do third person, it's hard to fight.
Everyone in the building truly believed that the game would be a better game as third person, then you go to third person. And I respect you for allowing that creative freedom, and for them to be you into agreeing at that point.
We don't tend to. A lot of us have worked together on and off for like 15, 20 years at different companies. Not always together at the same time, but no one would work with you anymore if you started ruling him all the time.
Yeah, no, fair. No, shoot it to the animation team. I love the walk. I love. Shout out to whoever did the slide. Who did the slide with the knees? That's hilarious. That slide, like, love that. And then obviously, I love games where you scan, you get the codex, you get information that kind of opens up quests that leads to different things. I thought that was well done. How'd you guys get the Dave the Diver collab thing going?
I'm a big believer. Just reach out, like that sort of stuff. So it seemed like a good fit. And he's been muttering about putting Martin Tweed into Dave the Diver somehow. I don't know what he's doing, but that would be funny. But I know we just reached out. We thought it was a good fit, like Dave the Spaceman, and I'd always wanted a more rotund character. I don't.
Beefy boys need love, man. We need love in these games, man.
Yeah, I get a bit sick of playing like these stick insects every game I'm playing. So it seemed like a good fit, and they were very nice, very easy. They just said sure, and so we sent them. Obviously, they ticked off on the stuff, and then we sent it to them.
Oh, that's awesome. I got to get the reason why King is here.
Real quick, I have one more question about development.
Please go for it.
How much creative freedom did the homegirl have on her narrating? Because
she's awesome. I like her.
She was amazing. She was amazing.
I love her.
That's all my script, sadly.
That's why I asked.
That's you.
I didn't know if that was a script or like, because a lot of those times, like it's creative freedom that they are able to do what they. Actually, the fact that was a script is impressive, because some of those were. I was like, she did not just say that. She did.
Yes, she did. Yeah. She's like, you might need that obvious thing I've been mentioning to you a bunch of times to advance the game. I'm like, yo, this game is wild.
There was one thing I will say at the very beginning, when right after you get fired, and then she's like, "Oh, we could do this, but then again, you are unemployed. You don't have to listen to me." She's
like, "Oh, you just go straight eat that thing without scanning it." Yeah. And shout out to the question. Yeah, please.
Just like that's it. So we just tried to write a bunch of stuff that was responding to player actions. Like I said, I think the players should. You laugh when you did it, or you understand the context. If the script is distanced from the game and it's just happening alongside it, it's not the same. It doesn't work as well. So just trying to find a good way to do a game script, basically.
No, it's awesome. And shout out to the questionnaire too. I thought it was hilarious. The scenario questionnaire, hilarious.
That's a little bit of Google throwback.
Yes. So now I gotta give King some love. Look, King says one of the reasons why we wanted to get you on, because you made some tweets, and one thing I respect about you is your complete transparency on how you feel. Like, you are going to say how you feel. That is a rare thing. A lot of people, don't always say how they honestly feel.
Not a popular stance in the modern world.
Exactly. So this is the thing. You got two tweets. So one was obviously we're trending. If you love it on Game Pass, please consider grabbing the upgrade
Yep.
pack to the Hoarder Edition. You got the Quest, the outfits. You
That's right.
said we need these kind of sales to stay in business. And then the
Yep.
second tweet, I think King wants to talk about in reference to, you had the 1 million explorers milestone. So you said playing Revenge of the Savage Planet. You said in the modern world, it sadly doesn't mean sales
Yep.
with the subscription service, but still an awesome milestone. So my question in reference to, I think where King may be going, but he could expound, is and again, if you are at liberty to discuss, I know there's contractual things involved. How helpful was getting the Game Pass deal for both games financially? And then my second question: what are the pros and cons of game discoverability for the game being in Game Pass versus the old school method, traditional, just multi-platform sales without any inclusion into a subscription service?
Let me add something onto it real quick too, because the original one was on Game Pass, but at the time Microsoft and Xbox wasn't doing like the upgrade bundle stuff. Because now this one where you can upgrade in Game Pass, like you actually pay stuff for in game like premium stuff. I'm kind of curious if you like seen more success. Like you don't obviously you don't have to answer you. I'm kind of curious how many people realistically do that. Like, is there a good amount, or is it just like something that is there but you don't really see a lot of results in?
I mean, there's a lot to talk about and all that.
We hit him like we bombed him adequately for thing. So we're gonna get to that point, but let's get with the first with
I think they're all sort of connected in the sense
cool.
that I
Go
think
for it.
the market is always changing in games, and it feels like every time I ship, which sadly these days like 4 years. It used to be 3 or 2, which seems much better, but you feel yourself getting much older between releases. But it feels like every time we ship now, the market has radically changed. Whether it goes from it's a box product, and I'm talking to Walmart to get it on the shelves, because if you don't get on shelves, you can't sell, right? And, then it's like, all right, what's your DLC plan? Then it's what's your season pass? Then what's your battle pass? Now we've got subscription services, so it's very tricky because it moves so fast. The industry moves so fast in terms of change. And it's hard to make money. Like, games have been going up as much as it sucks that video game prices have been going up. The costs of making games have been going up at 20 times the speed. And it's hard to sort of balance all of those things. In terms of we made the bet that going with Game Pass, that we needed more visibility than we need. We would risk the sales for visibility, and we'd try to make up the money by selling an upgrade pack at the same time, because the worst thing you can do after spending X years on a game is you throw it into the abyss and
nobody see it.
That's heartbreaking. That's when you go and work for Walmart. Like that's when you go become a greeter. So I think that was our deal. In terms of how many people do it, a really disappointingly small amount. Like, I think, especially, and people have been really positive about it, and you're like, all right, so we got like 800,000 something, like Game Pass players, and a very tiny percentage upgrade. And I was sort of a bit disappointed in the sense
okay, you want that more upgrade bag.
If you got it,
Alex,
for free,
I will say that if I play a game on Game Pass, I do tell people to do that upgrade package.
And that's why I was tweeting. I was like, maybe people don't realize how thin the margins are, and like
they don't.
And the way we need to get paid, we need to repay the entirety of the budget as it costs to the people that funded it, and then we make 30% of whatever we make on top of that. So and then if you think about it as a small studio, we don't make revenue. That means until X millions of dollars have been paid back, we don't make $1, right? So then you've got to find new ways to make quite So like we're in a good spot, like where we've been pretty frugal, like with all of our stuff. So we're okay for quite a while, but it's still risky, And the general business, the publishing business, I think, like the music industry, or like it's not meant to let you get out from under the publishers.
Right.
It's not designed to do that.
Right.
It's designed to keep you asking them to get another deal so that they can keep you, and then they throw you a bone, but then they so it's really tricky to make money.
All right. Okay. So that's exactly the point right there, right? Because I try to explain to people that 30%, you can't live off of 30%.
No.
That's not going to happen, right? And people say, well, it's a free 30%. No, it's not. Okay, because there's costs that went into, and then the 30% is not really it. And that there goes the upgrade, because in the beginning you didn't have an upgrade thing. So you saw it, and that's an option, because I guess they were toying around with it, looking at the actual numbers on the back end. And when I saw the 1 million, I was so happy to tweet it out. Yeah. But then I saw like the caption, I was like, sadly now,
Yeah. Well, if you look
1
at,
million.
like, we
Yeah.
talk about Doom, right? I
Mhm.
think Doom has said that 90% of their players, the 3 million,
Mhm.
didn't pay for it.
Yep.
Mm.
And that game's even scarier. That's $100 million game, right? $150
Mhm.
Yeah.
million game. Like that's a big hole to fill with 10% of the
Mm.
people
Yeah.
paying it. And so I think it's always, I mean, they're okay, obviously, because they're internal Microsoft and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
But even for Microsoft, like, are they making day one Game Pass? Are they making $150 million
Mhm.
back? I don't know. I think that's,
No.
it feels shifty to me. I don't know. Oh, not shifty. It feels
No. Yeah.
dangerous.
Well, yeah. That's where the thoughts of unsustainability comes into.
Mhm.
But a larger company that can back end their load, it works out for them.
Yeah.
It doesn't work out. See, that's why, subscription services for every company doesn't fit. That's why certain ones look different. Microsoft is in a position that they can like back end it or whatever and play the long game on it.
Yeah.
So, of course, over a couple of years, that $20 a month and then you raise the
it works
price,
perfectly.
that,
Yeah,
that
exactly.
works. Yeah. But that
Yeah.
doesn't work for somebody else that doesn't have that business model.
Yeah.
But as a independent company getting the Game Pass bag, we kind of thought early on that at least the Game Pass bag would fit some of the cost
Yeah. So like,
of the development.
Yeah, that was the question I was going for too.
And
Yeah.
it does, like I say, but 5 years ago, the deals going around from Epic or Game Pass or Sony were like 4x what they are today.
Got
Yeah.
you. The bag's going.
and
Oh,
so-
okay. I got you now.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you could basically say, all right, we take a big bite out of our development costs, and then
Mhm.
that seemed like a good deal. But now it's like 25% of what it was, and Microsoft's been fantastic to deal with and really
Yeah.
really great.
Mhm.
But all that money goes like we haven't figured out, but essentially the check arrives at us and then goes to the event, just goes straight past. Like over. So yeah, so it's not quite.
Now,
not
when you
quite the
say
same.
straight past where?
Yeah,
No,
it
well,
goes-
he got to go pay the bills.
You got to go pay it out. Okay, I got
well,
you.
not
Got
even
you.
the
Right.
bills. No, we got to pay the bills out of our savings. This has got to go pay back the advance.
Oh, the event.
So we're not even paying
Got
our
you.
bills. We don't.
Got you.
So until we pay back the totality of the advance, we can't pay any bills.
So you educate us because again, I understand every Game Pass deal is different with every developer.
Yeah.
I don't want to pigeonhole everyone,
No.
but like we were under the pressure, like, oh, okay, so a studio gets the bag, Game Pass bag, they're good, right? They're comfortable. And what you're saying is no, there's still more nuance to this.
I think
in
for
your
us,
case,
yeah, for us for sure, because we're like in that weird spot, like the AA spot. Like we're
Yeah.
not, the $100 million game, but we're not a $2 million game. We got to add another zero to all these things. So like,
Yeah.
Got it.
and that's, I think it's always been a dangerous spot, which is good because when you can get it out, you look bigger than a lot of the indies, and you have a different flavor to the AAAs,
Yeah.
but you're not. It's a lot more money to pay back.
No,
Yeah.
good point. And I hear what you're saying in reference to that, and then I also hear what you're saying as far as risk, as far as storefront visibility and having your game at least next to Doom or Halo
Yep.
or Gears or whatever it is. So it's the trade off, and I understand
Yep.
that. And I understand the passion. Like, hey, okay, you guys supported it, but hey, man, it really does help when you get that extra suit. When you
Yeah,
please pick up the
exactly.
thing. Yeah,
Throw us $1.
yeah, I feel it. And generally, just for transparency, when I love something, saying I'm the type like, yo, I'm getting that pack
Yeah.
and I'm getting that thing.
Yeah.
In addition to the fact that it's on this service that I like, to be honest, in King's defense, I probably wouldn't have known about you.
Yeah, that's it. And this is it's almost back to the streamer argument. It's very unclear what's real and what's not. Like it's all subjective. It's all feelings. And if we had a clear answer, you could make a plan. But like you never know. You never know. Yeah. Like some people, I just saw it and they become big fans and they buy it. Other people were gonna buy it, now they got it for free. So do they wash each other out? Like I don't know.
Yeah.
It's very
Right.
it's very tricky.
Final question in reference to, obviously, because you are multi-platform, right? So you get the visibility of Xbox Game Pass, boom. But like maybe again, you'll see the stats of the day. You have that, but in reference to the other platforms now, if that helps or hurts, with that relationship being on multi-platforms.
I thought it's really unclear because again, it's the same answer to everything. That you don't know how many people have the multiple console owners and especially hardcore players. So is it a casual audience that's more likely to have Game Pass, or is it weirdly the hardcore audience that has Game Pass?
Right.
Because the casual audience, we knew at EA that 50% of the Madden players, 50% of the FIFA players, they only play Madden and FIFA.
And
they
that's
do
it.
not play And the Sims, same thing. Yeah, they played the same game. So if you give it to them for free, you will never monetize them. They will never be found. You'll never get another dollar out of them.
I think the Call of Duty fans, Microsoft is learning that from Call of Duty.
Yep.
In that sense that I see them being more aggressive with the season passes and making stuff hard not to get the season pass and all that other stuff that goes along with it.
Yeah, 100%. And that's it. Because like now you're spending like, I mean, the original Call of Duty was probably $20 million to make, you know, and now it's probably $400 million.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like it's insane, and the box costs the same amount, you know. So then you gotta figure out like how to deal with it, because otherwise, like I mean, I don't think it's going there. I think we're in a much healthier position, and there's all kinds of avenues to players and from developers in different scales. But you know, the market has the '80s crash for Atari. The market isn't necessarily forever. You know what I mean? And it's we've got to deal with good faith in all directions.
Do you think there needs to be a change with obviously the budgets and things are going so crazy? You mentioned crash. We have a lot of good friends in the industry, and we've heard that term before. People are concerned. You know what I'm saying? These games are out of control. The budgets are out of control. You know, and obviously the layoffs. This is a very volatile industry. You know, hearing your story and you taking the chances, you know, to get into the industry. But like, what do you for the uneducated, for those, you know, you're speaking to us fans that want to go get into game development. What do you think right now is the biggest thing people should learn, you know, as far as making a game in this current climate?
I think start with the positives. That there's different scales. There's indie. You can be a bedroom coder. You know, games started as a bedroom coding business in the 70s and 80s. All the British stuff was all bedroom coders. People doing it on their own, distributing it at flea markets on cassette tapes and all that sort of stuff. You know, Richard Garriott, and then it went through this sort of corporatization, and now we sort of have both. You know, which is nice. Yeah. So you can be Stardew Valley guy and put your thing on Steam. I mean, it's a bit like, you know, the same way that everyone thought that the Blair Witch Project was going to be everybody, and you're like, no, there's just the Blair Witch Project, man. That's
exactly.
Just because you have a video camera doesn't mean you can direct, you know. So, but you can try. You can try, and then there's still companies going. I think the biggest danger, ironically, is for the big publishers, because now they've shrunk their portfolios and they're making bigger and bigger bets, and it's so expensive that fewer failures can lead to catastrophic results. And I think Sony suffered a bit through that recently. You see with Concord, that's just burning $250 million, burning it, like setting it on fire.
Easy.
Wow.
You know?
The live service push.
You can't have that happen.
And hopefully we'll push them to like balance their portfolio a little bit more, and have some small stuff and some big stuff, and it's like
Philly Fun return to the Savage Planet.
That'd be nice.
I wouldn't say no.
I definitely would look forward to that, because I love your humor. And the fact that I did see the tweet, and I'm not the guy that books anything, right? And usually I'll send, could we really have David Jaffe on, or people that I admire in the industry that are outspoken enough and courageous enough, and I want to know their journey. I want to know their story.
I appreciate that.
And I say, please, God, could y'all like reach out? And this is the first time, literally, that I reached out to somebody on my own. But then you responded. I was like,
What you gonna do now?
Now you gotta do it.
I was like,
gotta do it.
Yeah, I was like, please hit COG up, because I don't want to fumble the bag. Right? And I needed this because I really want people to understand from the developer's perspective, right? And I try to tell people, regardless of what 30% you can't live off of. And the reason why they have upgrade packages is because those upgrade packages are essential to the actual growth of the studio. And if you love the game, if you played the game, like the game, one exec, Mikey Burris, said that it should be a tip at the end of the games.
I didn't mind that idea. Everyone freaked out, but we were joking.
Why am I not surprised you didn't buy this idea, Alex? Why? I'm just joking.
I mean, it's like I said. Like not only is he a developer working on the games, he's the person responsible for everyone under him. So it's like he's got more responsibility on him than like the average person that's in the development process.
Okay, so to the point that I was going to say was, I gave him kind of flack for that, right? I do believe that the upgrade option is a better idea than a tip.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Because
you give them content for their stuff.
You give them that content, right? and everybody wants extra content, but also people want those early days, or they do want to feel a little bit different from the average guy, and they do want to show that they respect your product. So I do endorse the upgrade package. So I hope there, in return to the Savage Planet, I hope there's a double upgrade package.
I hope
How
enough people buy if enough people buy the current one. Yeah, we'd love to do another one.
okay, quick question, because I know we're about to wrap this up. Collaboration. How hard is it to do that? Like, is it just an email? Is there like contracts? Is it some of it like
Do you mean
handshake?
do
Yeah.
you mean with like Dave the Diver?
Yeah.
Well, you need a contract. That's kind of like, I mean, all of this gets back. This is the thread that runs through all the things we've talked about. You know, like there's the you know, if we're streaming or whatever, like you just need a deal so that everyone understands what they're signing up for and
What the
and who's using
expectations
what.
are.
Yeah, exactly. And so like, you know, we can't someone just jam it in there and it looks awful and they have no rights to it and it's their character and make it look stupid. You know?
Hey, King,
Yeah.
you know what helped launch that upgrade pass? You do the upgrade pass, you get a Master Chief skin.
Oh boy, yeah, that's gonna
You
cost a
know,
lot.
that's why you got to go for Dave the Diver. Microsoft will never ever
Exactly.
ever let you do that.
No, fair enough, fair enough. I want to know, as we get to the end of this, you know, what's next, Revenge of the Savage Planet, and as far as the roadmap, any potential things you got going, and then obviously you did allude that Raccoon Logic has got some other ideas going
Yep.
on. I mean, if you want to debut them, you could easily
Yeah.
do it here in the round. I mean, if you
You have to get me
choose,
back. You have to get me back for another
well, we
one.
got you.
Another one.
Yeah, we got you. We got you.
So we got the day 30 patch coming up very, very soon, which will fix a bunch of like little niggles and quality of life things. The other thing when you're small is you don't have like Activision's 500 person QA team. So sadly, there's always some things you miss. So you see it, yeah, some fine tuning. So that'll come, and then we're gonna do another day 60 pack. We're gonna do some free modes, I think, for people.
Awesome.
We've got a few cute ideas for some free content, probably for the habitat we'll throw out there, and then a few secrets towards the end of the year. And while we're doing that, we're going to be pitching new stuff. Yeah. So there's obviously ideas for a third Savage Planet game, but you know, there's all kinds of people might be ready for a
Something
change
new.
of tone before we come back and finish the trilogy.
And plus, I've always been like, when it comes to QA on smaller teams, you know, AA indie, I will go in on some AAA games if they ain't QA correctly. But
we definitely
like
more forgiving.
This game, like the Tainted Grail, that game runs horrible. But I'm like, look, small team, like you got, and it's just like, I don't ever want sure the game came out in that state, which Revenge runs miles around that game.
It's incredible.
That runs good.
But I'm always like one of those things, like you can't run people out of the room just because there's acceptable reasons why it's like that. Should it have came out like that? No.
Yeah.
But when they
30
got 30,
people.
40 people,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Resources, there's definitely, I
because to
hear
me,
the
if we run
expectation.
someone out of the building, they could make the next Skyrim in a couple years, and we ran them out before they did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's actually
No,
it's
fact.
fun. Like maybe that's a good note to end on. But like the Skyrim, Bethesda's always been a company we modeled ourselves after a little bit, in that they started with a small team, and then they worked on iterative sequels that let them grow their lore and grow the tech base that they had. And so they were able to make bigger and bigger games without having to grow to 400, 500, 600 people. And you've seen from Journey to Revenge, it's a lot bigger. And so we're on that journey. So the hope is, without having to grow too much, we'll eventually be able to make sort of semi AAA stuff. But we'll see. Fingers crossed.
Nice. So three rapid fire quick ones to get you out of here. First one, okay, why are you Bang Bang Click on socials? What's the Bang Bang Click about?
It was funny. It was a good friend of mine, Clint Hocking. His name is Click Nothing, and I was trying to, when you try to figure out a stupid username, I was just like, what's his? His is Click Nothing, and I was like, I'll do Bang Bang Click, like the sound of you running out of
It's
ammunition.
always funny how people come up with that stuff.
With their names, I was like, I just think it's so cool. All right, cool. So that's number one. All right, and then now this is the one this is a tough one. Now this is when we hit all the my people who join the realm as guests. This is very thick hard. I need Lord Alex's top 5 video games or franchises of all.
Don't gotta be in order.
Don't gotta be in order.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, that's good. Ultima's up there. Ultima 7 is a huge influence. Super Mario Brothers, just because you get like half the genres in the world by pulling that one out.
There you go. Great franchise.
I always hate because you name ones that are too big. Like, you know what I mean? If you're really talking about the big ones, but like
Yeah.
probably Zelda, as well as in
Okay.
there, just because Ocarina. I remember, summer holidays playing Zelda 2 on the NES, and then Ocarina in college, and it's just always sort of been there hanging around.
Sounds like
I'd go with
Come on.
SimCity, like, you know what I mean? Like you mentioned it
Yeah.
before.
Maxis
Just like,
Love.
yeah,
Yeah.
Max, it was what moved me overseas. You know what I mean? I wanted to make that game. I still want to make that game.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of simulation based stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then, gosh, what would I
One last one.
What would I throw in on top of all of that? There's so many.
Important to you.
Yeah,
the
Savage Planet.
impact.
No, I'm not saying it. That's terrible.
Yeah, you can say yours. That's
No,
yours.
no, that's terrible. That's
Yeah,
terrible.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
disgraceful.
Impact
Did I
or
say
Lord X.
GTA? Probably Grand Theft
GTA.
Auto.
Grand Theft
I mean,
Auto.
just because, and more for 3 and Vice City being the ones that really blew me away. Just that sense of freedom, but also they had that weird sort of British acerbic tone, which I hope they preserve. Now that there's lots more and more original people leaving, I got my fingers crossed for 6, but we'll see.
Do you think the industry really is trying to stay away from that 6 smoke like the industry claims it is?
Always. Oh no, that's a real thing. Yeah.
He said, so move your release date. Move your.
We outside.
It's gonna suck the air out of the room. Like the problem
Wow.
is you won't nothing. The big ones, and I've been lucky on a couple times with AC3. I think we were almost there. People were moving their dates to get away from us. And so it's fun. It's fun to have. It puts a lot of pressure on.
It's fun to be doing it to you. It sucks when you have to do it to other people.
It's not so fun when they do it back.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's not fun when the rabbit got the gun. I get it. I get it. And final question: favorite console of all time and why?
I think you guys could already answer this one for me. Like
Amiga.
Amiga 500.
Amiga 500.
Yeah, just an absolute beast of a machine. I've still got one in the closet here. I just don't have a Commodore 1084S monitor.
Yeah, right.
In the monitor was the greatest machine of all time.
Question
Iconic.
to leave out. I think you said. Did he say he heard of us before this?
Yeah.
Where
He
did you
he
hear
heard
from
about-
us? I'm kind of
where did he hear
curious.
about
I
that?
just see your stuff passing on my timeline. I pay
awesome.
attention. I pay attention.
Awesome.
Was
I
King in it?
respect
He was.
Yeah. It makes sense. He big
because
clip doing something.
I got a console war fight, right? And literally your tweet, they was like, see, I told you Game Pass doesn't work. I said, wait a second here. I got to use this to my advantage, right? So, but
And the funny thing, he going through all that, and the comment section's only attacking King, and all we did the entire time is, King, you're wrong. That doesn't make sense. We make a joke. Cog is the host. We make the joke. What do they call us? The Jackson 5? Or
Yeah.
Now you know what it's
King's
like
the host,
if you
and we're
come in
just
on
the other
streamers.
guys.
You had the same feeling.
Yeah. The same smoke.
so I said, listen, first of all, day one Game Pass, everybody's checking out his game. Just right now, there's a lot of different games that launch in Game Pass, but don't worry about it. I'm going to make sure that the word get out. I said, we're going to double and triple that number.
Perfect. There we go.
There we go. And purchase the damn costume pack. So
That's right.
Exactly.
I'm a streamer today. Do I have your permission? No.
Absolutely. See, now we're making the modern industry. Now it's all working.
Don't do that. You messy. Anyway, Lord Alex Hutchinson, an absolute pleasure to have you in the realm of the Lords. Where can the fine people find you, and how can they support Revenge of the Savage Planet?
Well, so please give it a look on Game Pass if you have it, or trust us and buy it on other platforms. But if you buy it on Game Pass or get it on Game Pass, please have a look at the Cosmic Hoarder Edition.
Yeah.
And I'm Bang Bang Click on both Blue Sky and Twitter if you want to hear more rantings and ravings.
How's the game run on Steam Deck? Does it run good on Steam Deck?
We just got the big blue tick or green tick or whatever it is yesterday.
So verified. There you guys go.
Good.
Steam Deck
Verified,
verified.
Verified. Throw that bad boy
Yeah,
in the
I
ally
might-
too. Get that going.
Might take it with me over to California next week.
California
Perfect.
Summer Games Fest. So Lord Alex, again, thank you for your time. Really
you so much.
appreciate you. An absolute pleasure. The legend, Raccoon Logic, creative director, and of course, Revenge of the Savage Planet out now, Game Pass and all platforms. Thank you so much for your time. Enjoy your day. We're out of here in Rome. Peace.
Peace.
That was dope.
That was fun. Thank you
Recording
guys. That was really cool.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much,
you
brother.
so
really
much, brother.
appreciate it. Yeah, when you got the